Come on in, guys. Come on in. We are in our last appointed time of the year, Yom Kippur 5782. It's an exciting time. Come on in the room. Let's talk. I'm not going to hold you guys long. I will be back on tomorrow and the rest of the week. I don't have a schedule for you, so you just have to kind of stay posted. You know what I mean? I'll put it on, definitely put it on YouTube, though. I'll try to give you a heads up. Sometimes I might just jump on. I don't know what that looks like, but I will be on uh, the entire week. I will be on. Some of that time we will be in intercession. Other times there may be some teaching, but I will be on. Come on in the room. Blessings to you. Blessings to you. Come on in. Come on in. Happy Yom Kippur. I really am. I'm extremely excited. And it's such a blessing to be counted in these seasons. It's such a blessing that the Father would consider us, that He would count us. Blessings, Elder, that He would consider us, that He would count us as sons. Um, there's a work that has to be done. And the truth of the matter is, if you've been postured or positioned and you've identified, these are very important elements. You might want to write them down: postured, positioned, identification. All of these things are crucial elements of sonship because they require that you be postured and positioned a certain way and that you have a certain identity. Your identity is not going to resemble that of everybody. Your identity is not going to resemble everybody's, and that could potentially be a problem. The word says that we are peculiar people. We are peculiar, a holy nation. That means we're chosen people. And we're going to talk a little bit tonight, um, prayerfully. I don't know how far he's going to take me tonight, but I'll be on for the next couple of days. So, hey, blessings, brother. I see you in the room. Much love to you. Glad that you're here with me tonight. Yeah, we're gonna go in a couple directions tonight. I don't know how far and how long I'll be here tonight, but I want to just kind of open this thing up tonight. Postured and position and identity. I want to keep repeating that: postured, position, and identity. One of the main things that the adversary is always after is the posture of the sons, the position of the sons, and the identity of the sons. So he does a lot of things around those things to try to get sons off, get sons out of the right posture, right? Because if you change your posture, then you could potentially lose a position. And if you're functioning in a way that you shouldn't be functioning, there's a loss of identity. It's an amazing, amazing thing. Just the conversations that the Father's been having in this season with sons about this identity. You know, the adversary is constantly trying to steal your identity. You know, we're concerned about, a lot of people are concerned about you losing your identity in the world. You know what I'm saying? So they're identity thieves, and you're putting protections on all of these different things. Your credit, you're freezing your credit, you're doing all of these different things, putting a freeze on your social, and all of these different things that we do from a natural perspective. But the one thing that a lot of people have overlooked is the fact that your spiritual identity is more important than all of that, and yet there are no measures put in place to protect spiritual identity. Whatever you've been called to, whatever your appointment is, your assignments are, whoever you are on the earth, it was intentional that you be here for the purpose, the position, and the identity as a son. And so the enemy, what he does is he begins to breach you as a young person. There's a breach that happens in the youth. The adversary has never waited for you to get older to try to challenge your identity. He's not waiting till you get older to try to challenge your posture or your position. These are things that he started with trauma. And so when the trauma comes in, then there are openings, and nobody is teaching us about these openings. Therefore, we jump conversations and we get all the way to generational curses. And this is bigger than a generational curse, because the word of Yah says that every man pays for his own sin. That's what the word says. So we make all of this hoopla and all of this money and all of these things out of things that really are not the main point. The main point here is that nobody, when I say nobody, I'm talking about the difference between church and kingdom, because kingdom leaders are teaching these kinds of things. But the majority of people who are saying that they are believers, the majority of leaders who are saying they are teaching kingdom are not at all. They might be teaching about generational curses, but I'm telling you, that's not what it is at all. What it is that nobody is teaching you how to manage your position as a son in the earth. Nobody has taught you about posture, position, and purpose. Nobody has taught you about posture, position, and identity, because identity is connected to purpose. And Facebook user, please put your name at the end of that comment, because sometimes the software that I'm using, I'm going to challenge them on that this week, is not showing me who Facebook users are, who some of the people are that are coming in the room. It's just simply showing you as a Facebook user on my end. So if you would kindly put your name in the room, just so I can acknowledge you. So I can acknowledge you. They're not teaching us about who our enemy is. There's no teaching on the depths of darkness. I'm going to begin to teach some things that seem a little strange to religious people. Who teaches on the depths of darkness? Sons do. Because you really need to understand the depths of darkness. You really need to understand how far this adversary is willing to go to keep you from accomplishing the purpose that you've been called to. You have to understand how often and how many times he's going to present another way to you. Yes, I'm going to tell you something. The way that the Father calls a son to is not always the easy way. It's a way that sometimes people are looking at us strange. It's a way sometimes that people are thinking, hey, sister, I love you. That people are thinking, well, there are other ways that you could probably do this. But can I tell you something? The one thing that I have learned, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how, thank you, Elder Vicky, I did see your name. No matter how difficult it gets, no matter how much of an adjustment I have to make, no matter how trying the time is, one of the things that I have learned about being a son of Yah, one of the things that I have learned about being an apostle, a prophet before, a psalmist, whatever all the things are that he called me to, right? One of the things that I have learned is that it is better for me to obey Yah than man. Yes, there are going to be challenging situations. You got to remember the situations that a lot of the apostles were in even when they were disciples. They were in some trying positions, some trying things, some challenging things, so much so that when the master went to make the sacrifice, Peter didn't even want to be associated because he was afraid of what that association might cause him. Right? Sometimes you're afraid of what your association with the suffering, with the sacrifice might cost you. But can I tell you something? It's more beneficial to you to obey rather than to sacrifice. It's more, and let's just kind of break that down just for a minute, because I want to go into something else here. It's more beneficial to you. It's the offering that the Father is looking for. Your obedience over your sacrifice. Okay, so what does that mean? It's more blessed. It's more important. It's better for you to be obedient than to sacrifice. It means that there are a lot of things that you could offer. Blessings to you, Prophet Doris. A lot of things that you could offer. But if it's not the offering, if it's not the sacrifice that's being called for, because obedience is a sacrifice. So I want to connect the dots here for you. The best sacrifice you can give is obedience. That's what he's saying. I'm going to make it simple for you. The best sacrifice that you can give is obedience. Sacrificing goats and lambs. See, he was using this type and shadow to give a picture even to us in this age and time. It's better for you to obey me than to put on a front. It's better for you to obey me than to do something because someone else wants you to do it because it'll make them happy. It's better for you to obey me than to be in a situation where you are doing something just to satisfy an environment. It's better for you to obey me. Hey, Prophet Ivan, it's better for you to obey me than to try to offer me something I'm not asking for. Because at the end of the day, ultimately, we have to answer to him. We don't have to answer to people. You realize that, right? There's no answer I have to give to mankind when all is said and done. Okay? In that great day when judgment is coming, and judgment, I want to say this, judgment comes often. It's not a thing where, judgment is that final thing when you get to the pearly gates. That's a bunch of religious hoopla, foolishness. There is a final judgment. There is a white throne judgment. But can I tell you something? Judgment is constantly being made during the time of your existence. There are judgments being made. Heaven is making judgments. You remember the Father says to Israel, he says, I call heaven to earth against you as a witness today. I'm using heaven and earth as witnesses. That means that they are not inanimate objects. They're not just things. They are actual beings. It's actual life, an actual life that he created that is carrying life. And that's not fascinating, is it? Because a womb carries a life, doesn't it? So these are actual beings. These are actual lives. These are actual entities that are carrying life. He said, I'm calling the witnesses to the table. And you remember he said, out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. Sometimes we think that just means that if 2 people agree on something, then the thing is established. No, a witness is somebody, right, that has been vetted. A witness is somebody whose information is going to either be stricken from the record or kept. He decides if it's stricken from the record or kept. It's not just you can say whatever you want and it's just going to be accepted. That's not how the kingdom works. In the world, people can team up on people and say whatever they want to say about stuff or whatever. And, in the court systems of the world, if you have enough witnesses, okay, let's just go to the master. There were witnesses that they formed against the master. Are you listening to me? They could find no fault in him. And I'm going to tell you something. When there is no fault that can be found, something will be made up. You've got to be okay with that. Now let's get to the lesson tonight. We're in Yom Kippur 5782. There are a couple things I want to talk about. I want to start with one of the first thing that he gave me, which was days to destiny. Now, what are we talking about? And I told you guys. So if you're waiting on Bible verses, you go to Leviticus chapter 23 and just read the feast days there. And if you are of the Bereans, right? You have the spirit of the Bereans. You will be able to identify where I'm speaking from. I no longer am getting ready to go into all of these, extenuating details on a live like this. I do that in private settings. I do that with the core, right? But this is more so for types and shadows. This is more so for the parable. This is more so for, giving you the information, and you can go and search it out and you can go dig it out. Sometimes I will give you verses, sometimes I won't. That's my disclaimer. I'm just going to do what he told me to do. And once again, that's one of those things that some people will be like, oh, well, let me just drop you a verse real quick. If he gives that to me to do that, if he tells me to do that, I have no problem doing it. But I remember what he recently said to me. It was a reminder of something that he already declared to me. And that was, there's a difference between the multitude and the core. The core is going to get more from me. The multitude gets what I give based on what the Father is speaking to me for the multitude, right? So that doesn't mean I love the multitude any less. It just means that I cannot exhaust all my resources with the multitude. And my business. That's all. The Father's just trying to help us make the adjustment in this season. He's trying to show us how to make the adjustment, okay? Showing us how and who and where and how much to give. That's important because at the end of the day, you must be sustained in this hour in order to accomplish and finish the assignment that's been given to you by him, right? So it's energies you're not going to exhaust in this season because you just can't afford to exhaust that energy. You don't want energy leaks. So you're not going to exhaust certain energies. You know, I want to just say this, days to destiny. Let's go back to there. I'm going to come back to the exhausting energy because a lot of y'all are still operating too much in your feelings. And I'm going to tell you what feelings is going to get folks in this season. It's not the season where we had this extenuating mercies. How you say, well, how can you say that? You're not God. I'm his prophet. And so I'm telling you, we're not existing on those extenuating mercies like that. Yes, mercies are new every day, but he didn't say how much mercy. How about this? Ooh, Holy Ghost, I hear you. How about this? He said new mercy every day. So if the mercy was this yesterday, it might not be that tomorrow. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? This is important. We got to stop reading what we want to read and seeing what we want to see. You understand? The truth of the matter is that extenuating mercy is not being given in this season. Can I tell you? When Noah boarded that ark, the mercy that was given the day before was no more. Are you listening to me? There was mercy that was extended the day before that door closed, the day before the Father closed that door, that the day of the closed door, that mercy was no more. Days to destiny. What is this about? Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the season where the sons go out into the field. We are shut up, or we are, in a space. Why are we there? Because we're commemorating, we're celebrating, we're remembering when the children of Israel were out in that wilderness place. And I want to tell you, the wilderness is not a negative place. It's a positive space. And the master proved the positivity of the wilderness. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. But let me say this. They're encamped in this wilderness place. Why are they there? They've been delivered from Egypt. Now, I want to kind of clarify something here, because oftentimes we are thinking of Egypt in so many different ways, and Egypt has so many different faces. And there are so many different dimensions of deliverance from Egypt. Like, you may be delivered from Egypt on this level this year. Maybe he called you away from your job. Okay, so that's one level of deliverance. But now, right, maybe he's calling you out of certain things that you do. That's another level of deliverance. There's a constant movement in the kingdom. So there's a constant deliverance and constant deliverances that are taking place, right? They are out in this wilderness because they've been delivered from Egypt. They've been delivered from the captor. They've been delivered from hard bondage. They've been delivered from the former king. And the Father says, I want to put my name on you. Now understand, there's a promise that was made here. The promise was to Abraham. The promise was for covenant, right? And because of covenant, the Father had a people that had gone. He'd already told Abraham, this is what's going to happen with them. This is what's going to go down. He already knew the things that would take place. He was not confused by what took place by any stretch of the imagination. Are you listening? He was not confused by what took place with the children of Israel. He literally told Abraham, listen, they're going to go into a land that they don't know as strangers. They're going to get stuck there for this many years, right? For this many generations, right? 400 years. They're going to be stuck. Oh my God. Can you imagine being stuck 400 years? Let me tell you something. We're frustrated and agitated with this simple trial, with the simple test that we're undergoing right now. We are, we're in our feelings. We're in a space, and these people were in they were in captivity for 400 years. That's generation upon generation upon generation. That's like what, 70 generations or something crazy, right? Almost 70, maybe 60. All right. And so all they begin to know is their captivity after so long, right? And so he brings them out of this captivity of mind, out of this captivity of hard labor, out of this captivity of this overlord, of this hard master, and says, you were under a king, but I am your king. So they're out in this wilderness. Now you would think, and I'm going to help you, because religious people would think that being delivered from captivity means easy street, right? Being delivered from captivity means everything is going to be smooth now, certainly, right? Being delivered from captivity means, the battle is over, that whole nine. And so people begin to judge the situation by your battle. They begin to judge the situation by your challenges, not understanding where you're located. They're in the wilderness because it's something that he wants to show them. They're in the wilderness because there's something that he wants to cause them to see. They're in the wilderness because he wants to get something out of them. He wants to work something out of them. Sometimes what needs to be worked out of us is just a trust of things that we shouldn't trust, a perspective that we need to make adjustment to go into the promised place. He wants to change the perspective of the people for the promise. He wants to change the perspective. It's not always a negative thing. Can I tell you something? All religious people think is that everything is about negativity when you're in the wilderness. It's a thought that, oh, this is negative. You need to work through something. I need to work through something, but this is not negative. This is a positive experience. The Father is desiring to position me, to posture me so that I understand my identity. And the only way I'll understand my identity is if I understand my God. He said that the people that know their God would be strong and do exploits. So what do I need to do as God? He says, I need to put a little pressure. I need to allow them to process through some things so that they will see me with the eyes they need to see me with, so that in the promised place, in the next space, wherever else I'm taking them, they won't question what I'm doing, but they'll be able to hear me clearly and walk in a dimension that they've never walked in. Can I tell you something I've noticed? Just with me, this is just me. I've noticed that the moment I get a little space to breathe, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a breather, right? And I feel like I'm collecting myself to move forward. Bam, here comes the enemy again. So now I said something the other day, and this is very important as a son. You got to understand this. And we're going back to Days to Destiny, because I want to talk to you about this, because we got to understand the relationship between the king and the promise. The relationship between the king and the promise is imperative, right? But I've been noticing some things. I put this up on my page the other day, and I was talking about knowing your enemy is important. You're supposed to learn from the enemy. I know that sounds weird. Religious people, what you gonna learn from the enemy? He's a defeated foe. Listen to me. As your enemy is accosting you, as your enemy is antagonizing your purpose, as your enemy is antagonizing your destiny, you should be learning some things about him. That's why boxers watch matches. Why are they watching the boxing match? Because they want to identify the contender. They want to see how does he move? How does she move? If I'm contending, if I'm running, if I'm playing tennis, whatever it is, I need to identify the contender. Because as I'm identifying my contender, then I'm identifying my strategy. Oh my God. Please write that down. As you identify your contender, you begin to identify your strategy. Put it in the room. I'm telling you, put it in the room. As you identify your enemy, that's the time for you to identify your strategy. Are you listening to me? You can't identify strategy without identifying enemies. And then what happens is, after I've identified so many enemies, right? After I've identified, I have a collection of enemy strategies. Oh my. You're trying to figure out, why am I going through this? Why do I keep going through these same things? Why? You need to identify the different strategies. I'm going to tell you something. If you'll notice this, every time you go through something challenging, it looks similar, but there are different nuances to it. It's never exactly the same. No, it's never exactly the same. You know why? Because the enemy has many faces. He has many faces, but you got to begin to identify your enemy so you can identify the strategy, right? Because once you identify the strategy, you're going to contend from a different place. You're going to contend from a supernatural place. You're not going to be trying to fight the adversary in the flesh. You're not getting ready to get in your emotions. You're not getting ready to get in your feelings about things. You know why? It's no reason to get in my feelings because I'm dealing with it from a spiritual place. I'm in the spirit concerning this fight. I'm not trying to swing with my hands. I'm not trying to swing with my mouth. I'm doing battle in the spirit. I'm in the presence of my God, making judgments, making verdicts. Listen, not getting ready to contend from a natural place. I'm going to contend in the spirit because I know that the enemy that I'm up against is not first flesh and blood. It's against principalities. It's against powers. It's against the rulers of the darkness of this world. It's against spiritual wickedness in high places. Now, I want you to understand something. We're going back to days to destiny because relationship, the difference, the relationship between the king and the promise, right? We're going back to days of destiny, but I want you to understand something. Spirits don't have a will. They just are what they are. They don't have an enforcing power. A spirit doesn't have an enforcing power. A spirit has a word. It has an influence. It just is what it is. It's a spirit. It's the spirit of this or the spirit of that. It just is that as a blanket situation. It doesn't have a soul. It does not have a will. A spirit doesn't have emotion. Okay? And it doesn't have authority. It requires a vessel. And I'm going to tell you guys something about this season. This is very important that you understand this. This is very important that you get this. The reason why you need to first identify your enemy so you can begin to identify strategies for contending, right? But you need to understand when things are coming to you, that's a spiritual thing, right? When ideas, when information is coming to you, that's a spiritual thing. That's a spirit. It's not even a visible. You can't see it with your eyes. It's a spirit. And when you think about pneuma or the breath of God, right? You think about just air. You can't see air, but it's a spirit. It's a transmission. It's a frequency, right? And when that thing is coming to you, it's attempting to get in you. When it's coming to you, it's attempting to get in you. Okay? It needs a vessel to carry out what it is. Okay? This is what the word says about spirits. He said, take every thought. Did you know a thought was a spirit? Yeah, we're not identifying these things properly. Thoughts are spirits. It comes from one spirit or another. It doesn't just come on its own. It's a spiritual transmission. It's a spirit. Thoughts are spirits. Are you listening to me? So when that thing comes to you, the Bible says this as it pertains to sons. Take every thought into captivity. Somebody put in the chat, arrest the thought. Arrest it first. Arrest it. You're not asking questions. You're not doing it. Arrest it first. You need to arrest every thought. The word says that you're going to bring it in under the obedience, into the obedience of the master's way. You're going to bring that thought, going to put it on the witness stand. Come on, arrest your thoughts. You're going to put it on the witness stand and you're going to interrogate it. Let's not even get to the witness stand yet. We're going to put it in an interrogation room. The thought came, you're going to interrogate the thought. What are you going to interrogate it with? The word says, try spirits by the Spirit of God. Try spirits. That means there are many. We're to try the spirits, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the inclinations. Try the spirit by the Spirit. It said, arrest it. Arrest the feeling. Somebody put in the chat, arrest that feeling. Arrest it. Spirits must be arrested first. That's the way of sons. We arrest a spirit first. We don't just let it pervade or just permeate our whole being. We got to arrest it first. Arrest the feeling. Put it in the room. Arrest that feeling. Arrest it. Read it its rights. Okay? Anything you say can and will be used against you in Yah's court of law. As a son, I hereby arrest you to interrogate and find out what your purpose is, what your intentions are, right? Arrest it. Because what happens if you don't arrest feelings and you don't arrest thoughts is you arrive at places that you shouldn't arrive at. Let's just talk about the children of Israel. Days to destiny. He has delivered them out of their captivity. Why are they in the wilderness? So he can purge them, so he can perfect them. It's also a place of rest, though. The wilderness is a place of rest. Were they getting beat anymore? Were they under the hard taskmaster anymore? Weren't they being provided for? It's a place of rest. I'm going to tell you something. There is a place of rest that's coming to the sons. The enemy is attempting to interrupt the rest of sons in this season. The Father is calling you to a place of rest so that you can recover. And the enemy doesn't want you to recover. He doesn't want you to be restored. So he wants to interrupt the place of your recovery. He wants to interrupt the place of your restoration. There's a place of rest that's coming because there's a recovery that's needed so that you can begin to flourish in a way that you've never flourished before. So that you can begin to move in dimensions that you've never moved in before. There's a conversation that the Father wants to have with you. And if you don't mind your feelings and your thoughts, you'll miss the moment. You'll miss the conversation. And it's only days to destiny. It was an 11 days journey from Egypt to Kirjath, right? Jearim, right? To the place where the Father had promised that he would take them. Now understand, many sons had already been in the promise. This promise wasn't a promise that nobody had been to. Sons had already gone to this promised place, but he had promised to make sure that his sons would have this space, have this place. And do you know the warfare that they endured to get to there? Constant warfare. They had to be constantly under duress in the wilderness, fighting. But what was the fight about? The fight wasn't something for them to be depressed about. The fight was for them to identify who their God was. So the reason for the fight is so that you'll really see that he's really for you. The reason for the fight, yeah, you know that. You've heard that. You've said that. But you really need to see the level that he's for you. It's time that you see the level of his love for you. It's time that you identify with how he really feels about you. Where he really is with you. Days to destiny, 11 days journey from where they're leaving to where they're going. Somehow, because they didn't understand their posture, their position, or their identity, they wound up in the wilderness for 40 years, dying. Whole generation dying because it's what they said. What they said about their destiny was what they received. Because he had a heart and a mind to get them there. He didn't take them the short way because he thought, you know what? They're not going to be able to handle that. The battle immediately is not going to be one that they can stand. But I'll give them a few days and then I'll present a battle. Because now I want them to see that the shout of their king goes before them. Now I want them to see how mighty they are in me. Now I want them to see that they are overcoming kings that other nations with chariots and major artillery have not been able to conquer. It's going to be the talk of the town. Somebody put in the chat, what the Father's about to do is about to be the talk of the town. It's about to be the talk of the town. You think I'm playing? We've been waiting on this moment. We've been prophesying about this moment. This moment has been prophesied by Daniel. This moment has been prophesied by John. It was closed up. It was shut up. And now it's being opened. What the Father is about to do is about to blow the minds of men. It's about to blow men's minds. Days to destiny. But he is faithful that promised. He's faithful. There's a balancing of the scales in this season. Chronos, which is the time that we're accustomed to as being in the physical body as humans, and Kairos, which is the time of God, the timing of God, is about to collide. And no level of darkness can stop it. No level of darkness can stop it. We're about to become acquainted with time in a way that we've never been acquainted. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's about to get real. The Father's desiring the reset for us. That has everything to do with identity. Then he wants to deal with recreation or recreation, because that's what he showed us to do from the beginning, was to recreate or recreate. You know, creation for sons is recreation. It's not work, it's recreation, right? Because that's what it was for the Father, was recreation, recreation. Yeah, the earth already was. Before that, there were people already. He desired to do a reset. He said, I'm going to create a man. I'm going to put him in this environment, and then I'm going to command him to let this environment begin to invade the rest of the earth. I'm going to make him a king in the earth so that he will be an example of what mankind is supposed to look like. He's desiring to deal with the reset so that he can allow us to recreate the invention of the thing so that we can get to the different realms that he's calling us to. That's about our interception of things, our perception and interception of things in this season. You know what the Father said to me earlier? He said, I'm calling my sons in this season divine air traffic control. Divine air traffic control. Why? Because there are frequencies, there's movement, there's all kinds of things going on in the airwaves, right? But I'm causing my sons to be air traffic control. That means you have to be mindful about what's in your environment, what you're adhering to, what you're hearing, what you're receiving, what you're believing, what you're speaking. Because these children of Israel, with days to destiny, begin to say, you brought us out here to kill us. You brought us out here to kill us. Can I tell you something? It's not always going to be easy. The process is not easy. The process of sonship is a sacrifice all of the time. There are different levels of sacrifice, but what happens is you begin to fall in love with the King so much that the living sacrifice doesn't any longer bother you. You're willing to sacrifice. You don't have a problem with it because of love. Because of how you're loved, you want to give it back. Listen, the reason that you're being contended with in this season is because of covenant. It's over the covenant. It's over what he promised. You heard the promise, and there's some things you still don't know because he said, eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard. Neither has it entered into the heart of man what I have prepared for those who love me. Not those I love. See, there's a difference. You got to be clear on this. I want you to be clear on this. Because he loves you doesn't mean he's going to do it. It's because you love him that he's going to do it. Those who love me have a certain posture, a certain position, and a certain identity. When you start advancing, that's when you're met with the challenge. Why are you being challenged? Because Yah wants to reintroduce himself to you in the challenge. You remember when Moshe was told to go back to Egypt and to set the people free, bring them out of their captivity? There was a challenge there. The challenge wasn't a stutter, because I know religious people like to say Moses stuttered. He didn't stutter. His issue was, how do I speak to the house that raised me? Well, how do I form words to communicate something that bred me? Are you listening? Listen. Moshe says, who shall I tell the people that sent me? Who do I tell them? I mean, all the stuff that they're going through, they've been in this captivity, they've been in this place for 400 years, almost 400 years now. Who do I say sent me? Because they've been under another master and another impression. They've been under another God. They've been under another king, and they've been under another identity. Who do I tell them sent me? Because I can't just walk up in here and just be like, listen, come follow me. Because generations later, they don't realize how far they are away from the one that's coming for them. He said, tell them I am. They'll understand it. That's right, Elder. And it's just days to their destiny. I need them to do a couple things, though. I need them to follow some instructions. So I'm going to give you some instructions, right? These instructions could seem weird to the Egyptians. Matter of fact, they were so weird that even though some of the Egyptians knew about it, and you got to understand that some Egyptians had leagued with the children of Israel. So this information was being leaked back to the Egyptians. Don't think that the Egyptians weren't aware of these things. They just chose not to honor what the Father was saying. They chose not to honor it. They thought that they were bigger than what was spoken. They thought that they were okay because that ain't what they served. They thought that they were okay. They were more important than the God that was speaking. They lost a lot. As the children of Israel began to see before they left the place of captivity. Yeah, they had some hard bondage, and yes, some things got rougher for them. But when those plagues started hitting, that's when a difference began to be made. You need to write that down. When the plague hits, when plagues hit, when famine comes, when all of the pestilence, when all of these things come, that's when the difference between sons is made. Whose son you are shows up in the test. Whose son you are shows up in the trial. Okay? I hope you're getting this. I'll be on tomorrow. We'll be here. I'm going to get off of here now. And I'm going to go ahead and just I want to say this before I got on. I don't know if you guys can hear what's playing in the background, but before I got on, I was having a conversation and I was sharing some really important things with somebody I love. And they began to ask me questions. It was something I wasn't going to really talk about, but they asked questions that I couldn't tell them something different, because love doesn't say different. Love doesn't say I love you and then do differently, right? So even though I was trying to keep information from them just to protect, because I felt like they were going through enough and they didn't need to deal with my stuff too. But the Holy Spirit had them ask a question, and I couldn't deny the answer, right? But before I got on, as I was sharing the answer with them, as I was sharing the answer to the question, I began to hear the sound. This sound that you're hearing right now, this is what I heard in my head. And it was almost like it was already filling the room. I won't say almost like, because it really was already filling the room. It was already filling the room. And so I'm like, oh, I need to go find that sound. I didn't know, off the top of my head, like, where do I find the sound? So I'm going to my YouTube, because I'm like, I need to find that sound. And the Holy Spirit is telling me what to type into YouTube, because I've heard the sound before. I've worshiped. I've sat in this sound before. But it's what I was hearing. And as I'm talking, I feel the weight of his glory on my face. Like my whole face is tingling just even talking about it. I'm telling you, you are just days to destiny. This isn't a game. This isn't a joke. Don't forfeit your position. Don't lose yourself in this moment. Just step into your authentic identity as a son, and don't lose it. Don't lose your posture. Don't doubt him. Maintain your position, because he's about to do something so big, so massive. And when I say he's about to do, I need to clarify that, because religious people think that the Father still has something to do, or that the Master, still has something to do. No, it's actually already done, but you're about to collide with what was done. You're about to run into what he already declared. You're all, and how are you going to do that? Because you're going to begin to speak as he's speaking. You're going to begin to say what he's saying. And as you're speaking what he's already spoken and saying what he's saying, you're going to run right into the thing that he's already done. He'll take you along the journey. I'm going to tell you what, I've experienced some things over these few years of being back in Michigan. It's been a wild ride. I was self-sustainable, doing my thing, came back to Michigan and was kind of being passed around, went through some things with people. He'll take you through some things. You say, oh, well, maybe you just have to do something different. Okay, well, explain that he took the children of Israel through places where other brethren were, like Edom and all of those things, and told them flat out, this isn't your land. You're not to do anything to them, right? Harvest of his doings, absolutely, elder. But they got to those places where the brethren were. And they said, we just want to pass through. We're not trying to take anything from you, just to pass through. Can we just pass through? He said, no, you can't come in here. We don't trust you. Matter of fact, if you come this way, we're going to run you out of here. They said, listen, we'll pay for water. We just want to be refreshed. That's what water is about. We just want to be refreshed. That's all. What I'm carrying, I'm going to pay my way. I'm not just going to come and take. I came to give, right? They said, we're going to run you out of here. Multiple times on their journey in the wilderness, they will run out, not by adversaries, but by brethren who would not allow them to pass through in peace. Would not allow them to pass through in peace. So much so that the Father said, okay, I see what Edom did. I see what this one did. I see what Moab, I see what they did. Now they can't stand before me for so many generations. Now I got to deal with that, because I'm just trying to bring you through. But you know what? The Father brought them through that way because he wanted to deal with what was in the brother. He wanted to address it. He wanted to confront it. So you're going through this wilderness. Don't get frustrated about the way that you take. He knows the way that you take. He's already declared the end from the beginning, even the outcomes that you're experiencing right now in relationships, in your fellowship. He already declared that from the beginning. He already knew what it was. Do you know that when he spoke to Cain concerning his brother, you remember the Father had a whole conversation with Cain. The conversation he had with Cain was to back Cain down off of what Cain had on his mind. He already knew the heart of Cain. He already knew what was in Cain. So he had a whole conversation with him to back him down off of it. Right? Cain had already made up his mind. He'd already made up his mind. Okay, so his sacrifice is accepted. You know, his position is this, that, or the other. And I feel like my position ain't. I'm going to compare positions. He said, why are you comparing positions? If you do well. Don't compare positions. Go learn from your brother. Go ask him, what did you do? What is the secret? What's the secret? What's the secret to your relationship? What's the secret to the Father showing up for you like this? What's the secret? Why does he care for you this way? Why does he love you like this? What's the secret? And his brother would have been able to tell him, because I give him the first of things, not the middle, not what's left over. I give him the first. You're going to experience some things. You're going to experience some things. But we're just days to destiny. And the God that promised, he won't lie. He won't lie. He didn't lie. He cannot lie. He will never tell you one thing and do something else. He said, I will never renege on what I promise. He said, I'm not like man. And I'm going to tell you something else about your heart in this season. Guard it with all diligence. He had me put up in the room some weeks ago. Manage your hedge. Guard your hedge, that your eye gates, your ear gates, your mouth. Guard your openings. Guard yourself. Because what the enemy wants to do is to jade you so badly till when the Father actually sends the people that he's sending to you, you won't be able to receive them. Because you're so frustrated with the experiences. You're so frustrated with the several encounters. So now you're like, I don't care. I don't want to be bothered. I don't care. I'm not going to be bothered with nobody. That's not what you're getting ready to do in this season. Take notes. Pay attention. Because you're just days to destiny. Don't harden yourself in this season. Yes, you may want to scream, but you're smiling instead of screaming. You may want to scream, but you can't help but smile because you know he's faithful, that promise. But in the middle of the test, in the middle of the trial, you want to scream. You're like, who do I say this to? Who do I tell this to? Am I tripping? Am I crazy? Am I losing it? You should have heard all the conversations I've had over the years of being back to Michigan. Am I tripping? Am I losing it? Father said, no, you're not losing it. I'm processing. I'm processing you for promise. Don't get jaded. Don't get hard. Because you're just days to destiny. And you need to be relatable. And you need to relate. Don't allow any circumstance to shut you down in the areas that I've anointed you or graced you to be. Don't allow anything, any situation, any circumstance, anybody to shut you down. Don't lose hope in people. Well, why am I saying that? Because people like to say, oh, as long as I got King Jesus, or I don't need nobody but the Father. That's not true. He not only is our King, but people. He's called a people to be consistent. He's called a people to be dependable. That's what we're supposed to be as sons: dependable, consistent, faithful, honoring our word. That's what we're supposed to be. Somebody's supposed to find us in that space and receive of that grace. So don't get jaded. And you'll reap the harvest of his doings. Start to talk like me, Elder. You'll reap the harvest of his doings. If you just don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. I love y'all. I'll be back on tomorrow. I just wanted to break you in tonight. We'll have some more conversations tomorrow. I want to talk to you a little bit more on time because, as I said, just days to destiny, 11 days journey turned into a 40-year science project is what I call it, and a lot of dead bodies. All because people couldn't figure out how to follow the instruction. When they got to that place, he said, go up and take it. They said, you know what, we're going to send spies in. Then the spies came back with negative reports and contaminated the people. And now they're saying, we can't do it. Then he says, that's fine. Then go back into the wilderness. Take your butt back out there then. You can't do it. Then go right back where you gone back out there. Because I was bringing you into a place and you decided to reject and refuse the place I was bringing you into. Go on back out there in the wilderness then. They said, no, no, no. Okay, we sorry. We sorry. This is why I'm telling you. That's another example. Thank you, Holy Spirit. There is a limit. There is a schedule. There is a clock. And mercy don't look the same every day. Please don't take mercy for granted. Don't take the mercy of the Father and don't take the mercy of people for granted. Because mercy don't look the same every day. It's new every day. It's new every day. New don't mean same mercy. New mean different mercy. Different kind of mercy. Okay? Could be less mercy than it was yesterday. All right? Let's not take for granted that we're just days to destiny and we need to honor whatever the Father is saying. Thank you for being here with me during Yom Kippur. I'm encouraging you guys. We got till the 15th of this month. Take it seriously. Go and read. Go into Leviticus chapter 23 and find out what Yom Kippur, the appointed times. Find out where it is. Find out that it's there in Leviticus 26 as well. And then begin to identify, as I'm sharing these things with you, even the association of this wilderness place. Because we'll talk about the master in the wilderness tomorrow. We'll talk about some more wilderness situations with the prophets. You know, I'm excited about this season. I promise you. I am ecstatic about the season that I'm in right now. Because there have been some things on me that haven't been on me in a long time. There have been some things that have intensified on me that I haven't felt the intensity on this level in a long time. You know why? Because I've left the place of my emotions. And I'm only choosing His Spirit over emotions, His Spirit over feelings, His Spirit over circumstance, His Spirit. Choose His Spirit tonight. Choose His Spirit tonight so that you can hear what the tactic is, what the strategy is, so that you'll be able to hear when He's saying, go in and possess it. Go in and take it. Understand there's no great and effectual door without adversaries. I had a dream a few nights ago, and I'm about to get off of here. Dream a few nights ago about an enraged adversary. He was angry about my position, angry about how I was functioning. And I mean, it was a rage on this person in my dream. And I don't believe that the person in the dream was the person. We'll talk about dreams maybe before the week goes out too, right? Because I'm sure that the Hebrew children had dreamed, because He said they'll be like those that dream, right? But they were enraged. And I'm going to tell you something. This enemy is enraged about your position. He's enraged about your posture. He's enraged about your identity. And he's absolutely doing everything he can to keep you from destiny. But I stood flat-footed in that dream. And I'm standing, it's a table in between me and this adversary, a table. You know, a table is a place. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Now He's opening something else to me. A table is a place where people come to fellowship, to commune. So this was a place of communion that had turned into an adversarial situation. But I stood on the other side of the table and I began to stand flat-footed and sing, I will not be moved. I will obey what the Father has told me to do. I will adhere to what He has spoken to me. And you will not move me from what I'm called to do. Those were my words to that adversary. That's got to be your position in this season. Don't get caught up in emotion. Don't get caught up in feeling. Just maintain your posture, maintain your position, and walk in your identity. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't know what time, so don't ask, but I potentially will put it up before it happens. So just kind of be on the lookout. Okay? Just to kind of be on the lookout. I love you so much. Listen, the body is not a me thing. It's a we thing. It's a we thing. Peace to the house of the sons tonight. I declare peace to the house of the sons tonight. I love you back. We'll talk tomorrow. Until we meet again. Good night.